Are you alive? Now, I know it's a really strange question, right? Like, why am I asking something like this? Why am I asking if you're alive? Because obviously, if you're watching this, me giving this talk, you're probably alive, well, maybe in a first world country, watching on a computer screen, device, whatever, right? So why am I asking a question like this? Now, if you just stick with me here, give me 10 minutes of your time, I'll explain why I'm asking this at the end of the talk and why this is so important for every single one to learn. And the reason why I really asked that is, for now, I want you to imagine yourself being the opposite of it. I want you to close your eyes, and then look at that pitch blackness that you see, and try to just imagine yourself dead. Take away all of your senses. You can't hear, you can't see, you can't feel, you can't smell, whatever. Imagine yourself fully dead, embodying that pitch black abyss that is death. Just take away life for 5 seconds and just stare and feel nothing. Just do it. Now, obviously, since you're alive, it's kind of hard to actually imagine yourself dead, right? You can't necessarily take away all of your senses in one go. But if you did it right, what it essentially should feel like is nothing. Because that's what death is, right? Death is essentially a pitch black void where you have no consciousness of ever existing because your entire body has passed away and the world is moving on without you. It's just blank state of void. Now, again, death and that blank state of void is scary, right? Nobody likes death. It's the most fearful thing in the entire existence of humans. So why am I saying like something like this? Why am I telling you to imagine death? Well, it's very simple because it has several key benefits like that can change your life completely entirely like it did for mine. Now, if you just stick with me, again, give me 10 minutes of your time, you either go through this talk having learned something new or having entirely changed your worldview just like it did mine. Now, I'm gonna give a quick explanation of myself. I'm Kevin Wang, currently a grade 11 student at Heritage Woods Secondary. And for the past 5 years, I've lived life less in the way that I wanted to. Now, I remember every single day, I would come home and I would play video games. Now, I know this doesn't sound really like I'm living life less in the way that I wanted to, but every single moment of my day, I spent time wasting away. Now, everyone has goals and ambitions, right? I had goals and ambitions, but I spent every single moment doing nothing towards those goals. I just remember waking up, logging onto the computer, going to school, coming back, immediately logging onto the computer. Obviously, I do some homework, but every single free moment of time, I was glued to the screen, wasting away my life. And I wish someone back then would have just told me, you're going to die one day. Now, everyone has goals and ambitions and joys they want to experience, right? Like mine, they want to live good lives, but on the road of life, there are things that combat against that. There are stresses, there are a lack of motivation, maybe just unhappiness in general. There are setbacks that can cause you to feel utterly garbage. And that's where the thing that I asked you to do at the beginning, feel death, imagine yourself death, comes into play. Now, it has 3 key benefits, and I'm going to start with the first one. But before I do that, I want to say what exactly is the topic of the speech. What am I talking about by feeling death? I like to call it the death mindset, or other people can call it differently, but essentially what it is every single moment of the day, you waking up, telling yourself you're going to die. And it's not just when you wake up, when you're eating food. There's a small voice, or it can be loud, that says you're going to die. It's all throughout the day. When you're at school, you're going to die. When you're working, you're going to die. It's that constant thing that just repeats itself over and over again, no matter what happens. And here's the first benefit of doing such a morbid thing. That is, number 1, crushing your goals. Now, everyone has goals, right? Like I mentioned in the beginning. You see these big figures in social media, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, they've accomplished great things and they've probably accomplished the goals that they set out to do, right? But what you don't see are the people that don't accomplish their goals, that don't put in the work, that aren't maybe even motivated to do such things. And honestly, it comes down to 2 things. Those people that don't accomplish their goals, there are two key setbacks that occur to them. One, not having enough motivation, obviously. Number two, not being unable to make smart decisions. Now, if you don't have motivation, how can you put the work actually in to achieve your goals? Number two, if you don't make smart decisions, how are you going to do the thing that you want to do? Like, goals take sacrifices. You want to get a six-pack ab, you have to make that sacrifice of not eating those bags of chips versus going to the gym or doing whatever you need to do, right? Working on that side business instead of going to a party, playing basketball, drinking up, smoking up. Not that I do any of those, but you get the point, right? Now, when you constantly tell yourself, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die, as morbid as it sounds, you really start to realize several key thoughts. One, this is the only life I have. If I'm going to die, I want to make the most out of everything. My time on this earth is too short to be doing this dumb shit that doesn't matter. Are you really happy with facing a pitch black void where you have no conscious stuff? If you're constantly thinking about death, if you're constantly thinking about this grand fear, that's probably the nightmare of the human species. Are you really happy with wasting away and not putting in the work in that you need to do to achieve your goals? When you constantly say, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die, how can you not have motivation? How can a flame not be ignited in your eyes? And honestly, the smart decision making comes right after. It's all about seeing a decision and thinking, will I regret this decision? Choosing one option over the other on my deathbed, will I regret picking this one over the other? Will I regret starting that side business over going to the gym? It's all about asking yourself questions about when you're going to die. For me, when I look back at the time I spent playing video games, will I really think on my deathbed that that was good time spent and I loved making that decision? When you have death in the mind, when you're always thinking, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, you start looking at decisions in a broad perspective. And then you start thinking, hey, when I die, I'm going to regret not doing that thing that I wanted to do. When I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to regret choosing that other thing over this. Constantly tell yourself you're going to die, and motivation and smart decisions come right after. Now, I want to give you one of two phrases as I go on to the next two topics. And that is one, life is too short. And two, everyone dies in the end. Just keep those in mind. Now I'm going to move on to the second benefit of thinking that you're going to die constantly. And that is completely negating fear and stress. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but just stick with me here. If you really look at fears, what do they normally come from? Think about the fear of public speaking. Why are you so scared of it? It's because you know that if you step on a stage and you mess up, people are going to have opinions of you. People are going to judge you. They're going to look down upon you, whatever it is. It's the opinions of the people rather than the actual act. And what about starting that side business? Maybe writing that book, starting a YouTube channel, whatever it is. Why is it so scary? Is it not because you're worried about how other people will look at you? Now, obviously, there's a ton of other things, right? Fears don't just boil down to the opinions of other people. But for the sake of this talk and for the sake of these specific things, majority of things come down to the opinions and fears of other people. And when you think about death constantly over and over again, they just become negated. Think that one phrase I said right before. In the end, everyone dies. So what do their opinions matter? Why? Why are you spending the little time you have left caring about these things that aren't going to get to your goals? If you constantly tell yourself, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, you realize every single moment you have left is so short and it's completely pointless to be wasting time on this. Now, obviously, that might be difficult for some. So here's another way you can look at it. Frame yourself in that position of fear. Look at yourself and go like, okay, I realize I'm scared. Now I'm going to step back and think for a second, hey, will I really care about this in 1 year? Will I really be so scared of it, so feared out of my mind? Will I care about it then? Chances are no. But if it doesn't work, go on further. 5 years. Will I really care about it in 5 years? No. Yes, go on further. 10 years, will I really care? 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever it takes until you finally maybe reach that point of you think, will I really care about this on my deathbed? This insignificant fear that I'm feeling, am I really going to care about it? And when you frame it in that broad sense of mind, you don't feel anything fearful. Now, in the end, everyone dies, and life is too short to be wasting time on these things that, first, you can't control, and second of all, do nothing for your goals and ambitions and the good life that you want to achieve. Now, I'm going to move on to the third benefit, and that's enjoying life. Now, one of the biggest regrets people have is not enjoying life to their fullest potential. And when you constantly tell yourself, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. I know I'm being kind of repetitive, but it's to drill that thought into your mind. When you tell yourself that, you know pain, which is death, and thus you know pleasure, which is life. To know pain, you must know pleasure. To know death, you know life. When you realize that every single moment that ticks away is gone forever, how can you not enjoy those moments all the more? And think about it for relationships too. When you realize that, hey, these people are going to die, it comes back to one of those phrases. In the end, everyone dies. When you realize that, the people that you love, let's say you're in an argument with them, just think for a second. The remaining time I have left with them, am I spending it wisely? That's a question for you. And honestly, when you think about death all the time, life just becomes so much more happy. Now, I'm going to end those 3 benefits here, and I'm going to give you a deathbed practice. Now, like the beginning, I want you to close your eyes once again, and then just look at that pitch blackness. You doing it? But this time, instead of looking at that pitch blackness, let it fade away slightly, and then imagine yourself on your deathbed. Feel the white sheets underneath you. Look at the people around you and all the senses that you have that are slowly fading away as you inevitably fade to that pitch black abyss. You're about to die anytime soon, and your life is coming to an end. Now, when you're on that deathbed, when you're in that moment, I want you to think of these questions. Living life, was I happy? Did I feel fulfilled? Did I accomplish the things that I set out to do? What are my regrets? What loose ends do I still have untied? What should I have done or shouldn't? What time did I waste? And probably the most important, if this was the only life I lived, was it a life well lived? Now you can get out of that deathbed state and just take everything in. Feel those questions and embody them into your actual day-to-day life. And now, if you just keep in the mind those 2 phrases, life is too short, and in the end, everyone dies. And then most importantly, tell yourself that you're going to die completely over and over and over again until it becomes drilled in your head. Growth will come to you and life will become so much better. Now, I'm going to end off with a saying here. At one given time, there are countless people that go through life without knowing what even lies on the other side. But too many are so without even understanding what lays on the other side, death. But for those who do know what lays on the other side and understand it and use the concept of such to their advantage, it is they who are truly alive. Now, just like the beginning, I'll ask you one question. Are you alive? Thank you.